Here we are again, another week, another episode of Let the Journey Begin, another episode that I'm filling in. I'm your host, Alex Meschi, the Executive Director of the Red Songbird Foundation, along with one of the founders, Hilary Roberts.
Hello, everybody. Bang, bang.
Bang, bang. Here we are. And we got a special co-host in the studio with us. We got Ethan Citron here.
Yeah.
I wanted him to sit in because, one, our guest is a buddy of his. Two, he's a pretty face, so we can have him on the camera anyways. And three, he helps us wrangle a lot of our guests. So what better way to get him more engaged by getting him more engaged? So here he is.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, glad to have you, Ethan.
It's cool to be here on the other end today.
Yeah, you get to ask the hardball questions today.
Oh, yeah.
But we've been very busy the last couple of weeks. We had a very successful town hall. We're looking to do another one. We just established May 27th for our Epic Journey Golf Classic benefiting the Red Songbird Foundation. Big thank you to Preston and the guys at Epic Journey for aligning that up with us. But we'll have some more fun on the golf course again this year. We've got another town hall coming out probably in the beginning of April. We're still working on the date there and the location, but when we have more information, we'll be happy to send it out to everybody so that you guys can join us. Just for the record, the last one we had about 100 people in totality come out, including representatives from various cities and city councils. So the support was huge. We had Lacey Bradshaw Hester come out and tell her story along with her husband, Noah Hester, talking about recovery coming from the Big Island and his path to success and his relationship with Lacey. So that was a great event. Hilary, we wish you could have made it. Unfortunately, you came down under the weather a little bit, but it's glad to see that you bounced back.
Oh, yes, everyone. I had COVID. And it's still, anybody that has this and has it in a little bit of a not so fun way, my heart goes out to you. I feel like I walk the stairs and I'm like, I just did an hour workout.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Ethan can relate on that.
Yeah, in October I almost died. I was in the hospital for 9 days.
Whoa.
On oxygen for 30 days when I got home, but I'm very grateful to say I made a full recovery and I'm back.
Yeah, back and working out and back to it.
Back to it. Yep.
Dude.
You got to stay positive and move forward.
Oh my gosh.
Awesome.
Now I definitely need to not feel too sorry for myself because I did not end up in the hospital. But I want to pick your brain later about it, if it's
Absolutely.
okay. So
I'm glad you're doing better as well.
I know it was very challenging, but now that you're kind of on the other side of it, not in the throes of it, I think it would be super helpful for you to talk about some of the challenges and the struggles, but how you were able to overcome them and, stay on the path of recovery. Because I know personally for a fact, 6 people, I can name them down, but I won't. But COVID took them out. They got sick. And next thing you know, recovery went by the wayside. So, I'm proud of you as your buddy, as your friend, as somebody that we work together as colleagues, but your whole story through that is definitely something to hang your hat on and be proud of because you did it.
Well, I appreciate that. And with that being said, I think battling addiction and all the things I learned in my recovery, I think that truly helped me come through on the other side with my COVID experience.
Yeah. No, definitely. I mean, the little tidbits that I was interacting with you about that whole thing, I mean, we were talking about other stuff too, but it was pretty eye-opening how you were able to have the resilience is really what it boiled down to. It was resilience. It was having, your setbacks, overcoming them, making advance and progress, and then stringing them together literally like, a day at a time.
Absolutely. And that's the way I handled it, one day at a time. It was a trying time for me. I thought I was grateful when I got sober, which I was, but when you look death in the eyes and you get to that point, it really humbles you and it really shows you what you're grateful for. So I really grew from that experience.
That's amazing. But in the meantime, let's switch gears and bring your friend on board. Why don't you introduce him?
Well, it's my buddy Dylan out in Arkansas. He's a really good guy, and I'm really excited to hear his story today.
Beautiful. Dylan, welcome aboard.
Hi, Dylan.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's a pleasure to be here, and I can relate with the COVID. I think for addicts and alcoholics, man, we spend such a portion of our lives responding to being sick that once we get into recovery and we're actually struggling with a sickness, some of those old behaviors come back with the sickness, you know?
Mm.
Tell our listeners what you mean by that.
I was actively addicted to heroin for 5 or 6 years. And nearly every day was either I have the drugs to feel okay or I don't. And then if I don't, then I have certain behaviors that I need to follow through with in order to feel okay again. You know, and being in recovery, learning how to feel what I feel without seeking to change it is huge. And this idea that, you know, the only reason I'm dependent is the chemicals is just not true, you know, because once the chemicals are out of my system, if I start feeling a certain type of way, man, those behaviors come back too. And I got to be aware of that, because if I'm not, and that's, for me, that's a humility thing. This idea that I can just not use drugs and things will be okay is just crazy, man. I need help.
That's right.
You know, and today at 8 years, I realize I need more help than I needed it at the first year.
Yeah. So that's an interesting notion there. Can you expand on that a little bit more? Because I think people that I have interacted with typically have the idea that there is a period, whether it's 90 days, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, but there is some switch all of a sudden where now things get easier. Now you get it, or you understand your work, or you know your routine. What do you mean by things get harder as things go on? Or not harder, but you need more work or more help?
It's almost, there's an element of routine. Like, I think it's real important at first to build your routine, obviously, but once you get the reinforced benefit of a routine, which is, I mean, any of my people who know me, I'm so big on routine. And once you get the reinforced benefit, you want more. It's kind of like the Dunning-Kruger effect, if you guys know what that is, right? The more you learn about yourself, the more you learn that you don't really know anything. And as you learn that you don't know anything, you really want to learn more, you know? But if you don't know much about yourself, then you believe you know it all. And this is this thing
that's some
for a long
soul-shattering
time.
stuff.
Yeah, for a long time, I thought that I knew who I was. You know, all of us, I'm sure, can go back into our addiction. And one thing we said a lot was, I do what I want. But then I got a bunch of that I didn't want. So I think one of the first steps in kind of understanding who you are is to understand you have no idea who you are.
Yeah.
You know, because that'll give you the humility that's required for you to go find out who you are.
No, so on that note, we're going to kind of take it back, way back, to who you were as a little boy, and what did you want to be when you grew up?
I don't know. So I grew up, my dad was a criminal defense attorney in Kansas City. He tried over 150 homicide trials. I grew up never having to worry about money. I wasn't spoiled, but things came naturally to me. My father avoided Vietnam by going to more school. Like, I think at the time during Vietnam, if you took a certain amount of credits, you weren't eligible for the draft. So my dad ended up becoming graduating law school at 22 years old. So I always thought I was going to go to law school. And, you know, I played basketball all my life. Once I wasn't a starter on the basketball team, it wasn't enough for me. And then I learned that other things made me feel like I was enough, using drugs and selling drugs. And I had an older sister who was struggling with drugs at the time. And I found what I got as a kid being good at things. I found that in using drugs. And it gave me this identity that was false and was an inflated ego that wasn't helping me at all. But at the time, man, it was attractive.
Was it just basketball that was kind of what led you to your breaking point, or were there other things that had happened that when you bundle that with, you know, now not starting on the basketball team, it's like, all right, now what do I do?
It was all of that. It was everything I've ever done. If I wasn't in class making the teacher look like an idiot, it wasn't a good class to me. If I wasn't starting on the basketball court as, you know, a star player, it wasn't good enough for me. If I wasn't, you know, and it was all with things that were easy to me. It was never with like important things like getting good grades or anything like that. I was always about taking the shortcut. I always kind of just thought I was who I was and I'm going to be successful the way I am. Wow. And that worked until it didn't, you know, and being 22 years old and addicted to heroin when I had the shadow of my father who argued in front of the Supreme Court at 27. I mean, it was shaky for me. And I use drugs to the point, you know, I say this a lot to my clients today, that I'm thankful I'm not a functioning addict. I'm thankful I'm not a functioning alcoholic, because if I functioned in any way, shape, or form, I would have kept doing it longer.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, a question for you. Do you feel like perhaps there was pressure being in your dad's footsteps that was what kind of propelled you to have to be the best or be the center of attention, or, you know, kind of do activities or behaviors that really were putting the spotlight on you?
Yeah, but it was self-induced. My dad told me every time I ever talked to him, I just want you to be happy. My dad wasn't the type of guy who's going to live vicariously through me. He wasn't going to like, oh, I didn't succeed at this, so you got to do this too. My dad always wanted the best for me. And the best wasn't what he thought, you know, the best was what I wanted. So I never got pressure from my parents, but the child is educated by what the adult is, not by what the adult says. And so, you know, I just thought I was going to become my dad without much work. And my dad put in 50 good years of work to give me the life that he gave me. And I kind of laughed it off like it was nothing.
Dylan's not just my friend, but he's also my coworker.
Oh.
Right? And I'd like them to just kind of touch on what we're doing out in Arkansas and how we're helping people out there. I
actually came out to Arkansas in 2013. I'll just give a short insight what brought me here. My dad had basically, for lack of a better term, my dad kidnapped me. And he basically put me in a house and he said, look, I know you're addicted to heroin. I know this is going on. We're going to keep you here until I know that you're clean and things are going okay. That was 2 years that he kept me there. 2 years of me hiding drug use, 2 years of me, you know, so I basically got to the point where I was suicidal, and I came out to Arkansas to see my mom, and she caught me getting high, and I went to this program out here, and then I ended up working for that program for about 7 years. And then that program fell apart, some management issues, and this was right during COVID. And so I was really entertaining the idea of never working in recovery again. And one thing that I've learned in recovery, one thing I've learned about me, I know Hilary had asked what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I always thought I was going to be a lawyer. I love talking about recovery. There's nothing more in the world that I love. For me, it's I either talk about not doing drugs or I do drugs. And the feeling of talking about not doing them is amazing. And so once I lost my job at the program that I went through, the program that I worked at for 7 years, I was a little lost. I had an identity crisis. And it made me really aware of I have to be conscious of what's building my identity as I'm in it, right? Because I can't just get my identity from one thing that's out of my control, right? So what I ended up doing was basically everything that I had taught the last 7 years in treatment, I just started writing. And so for about 3 months, I was writing, and then this place, True Self Recovery, called me, and I had never worked for a for-profit treatment center before, and I was excited. And I tell my clients all the time, since I got clean and sober, I have never applied for a job ever. I've never had to apply for a job in 8 years. People call me.
Wow.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. So I got a couple of questions for you. It sounds like your mother was your moment of clarity. Was that true? Or was there an event where you're finally like, you know what, I'm done. This is not working. I need to do something. What was that moment?
I would say that moment was at about 4 years clean. I know that sounds crazy, but really the moment of, my mom and I were not very close my whole life. We were close enough. My mom caught me getting high, and it was kind of like I wasn't concerned with what she thought about me or, oh God, I've hurt my mom and her baby. And it was none of that. For me, there was no more hiding anymore at that point.
Yeah.
There was no more hiding. And I kind of had this idea of like, look, I'm going to turn this decision maker off, and I'm going to follow the advice of the people who love me, and I'm going to see what happens. And this goes back to a rule that I try to follow today, which is treat yourself as if you're someone that you're responsible for taking care of.
I love that.
You know, and I had a client a while back, and he really wanted to leave treatment, But one thing I noticed about this guy is that he always talked about his 1-year-old son. And you know, I started thinking, like, what if this kid struggles? You know, chances are it's 50-50. He's going to struggle with addiction. And what if he's in treatment and he calls you one day and he wants to leave? What do you tell him? And he said that at that point, he goes, oh, he's not leaving. Right. And I'm like, then why can't you exercise that with yourself?
Wow.
And, you know, as soon as I put it back on his kid, he realizes he wasn't treating himself. He loves his kid more than he loves himself, you know? So what happened for me, the moment of clarity, I didn't need any clarity to tell me I shouldn't get high and drink. That was so clear.
Yeah.
What the clarity I needed was, even without the drugs and alcohol, you're still going to be sad and hopeless if you don't do something. Right. And so my first 3, 4, almost 5 years in recovery, I got into treatment, and I'm 6'5", and I was 145 pounds. And I think 2 years out of treatment, I was 6'5", 300 pounds. And I was really thinking to myself, like, I didn't get clean for this, right? I didn't get clean to be sober, right? There was nothing attractive about sobriety. What was attractive about sobriety was what I could get or who I could become if I were sober. But I have to do more I have to do a lot more than not use drugs in order to fulfill potential.
That's an interesting perspective, because I mean, I'm sure Ethan can attest, but a lot of people that I have come into contact with that are on the fence about, you know, going to treatment and stuff, they think the fun's ending. They think like life is being sucked out of the world. But the way you just put that, you know, sobriety itself isn't the thing to attach to. It's your potential after that. I think that's the message. You know, that's huge.
There was no fun and excitement. Like, and you know, the idea that there's a pain threshold is kind of crazy. But for me, if I were still having fun, like, it was, guys, by the end, this was a chore. Every day it was a chore. There wasn't anything fun about it. So I can't get confused and tell myself lies like, oh, I can't have fun or excitement if I don't use. I wasn't using for fun and excitement, right? Like, I was using so that I could walk into a grocery store. You know, I was using so that I could fall asleep and not sweat all the time. Like, this idea that, you know, when people, I get concerned early on when people come into treatment and they think they're missing out on fun. You know, it's like, I don't know if they, you know, a lot of people will say, well, maybe you need more pain. I don't know if that's the case. I know for me, if I didn't feel the amount of pain before I got here, the amount of pain that led me to wanting to end it all, if I didn't feel that pain, I would have never done anything else.
Let me ask you something on that front. So what do you do for fun?
So I do a lot of the old things that I did before I got clean or before I got addicted. One thing that I do a lot, you know, I would call it a maladaptive coping mechanism, is I play video games. You know, one thing I do today, and here's the thing about video games. I was just talking to my buddy about this. I see my addiction in video games. I can monitor it, right? There's times when I'll wake up in the morning and my wife will be going to work, and I'll pretend to be asleep, and it'll be 4 a.m. She's going to work, and I'll wake up and start playing video games at 5 o'clock. But I won't text her that I'm awake until 8 o'clock. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll do it, but that's not what I do for fun. To sum it up, community is the biggest part of this for me. Treatment initiates recovery, and community is what sustains it. I tell my people all the time, I've not had to say no to drugs one time in my recovery. I don't get myself into a position where I can say yes ever. You know, so that's a big part of it. Exercise is within number 1 to 3. I can't tell you what it is exactly. Exercise. Once I learned that at 5 years clean, I'm going to bed at night wondering if my wife's attracted to me and wondering if I like myself. But really the exact nature of my wrong is I'm lazy. Right? Then I need to start working on that. And so I get I don't have time to be bored anymore. I don't have time to, not have fun. Like, I get value from things that initially don't seem valuable, like exercise, like reading books, like meditation. right? I get value from these things today that where in the past, I would say there's nothing valuable about that. And that goes back to my original point of I have no idea what I like or don't like. You know, I've had things in my life that have made me excited, but most things that make me excited end up leaving me in pain or bored. So I got to really be clear about what makes me happy, because happiness is this weird social, it's like desire is this kind of social contract that you make with everybody that where you say, I will not be happy until, you know, like I'm not in that business anymore. I'm happy, you know, and I try to, happiness is a skill today, you know?
Yeah. And I think it's a skill, and it's like anything that we do, right? If we want to get better at it, we need to work at it. And happiness is one of those things that you need to work on. It's not something that just falls into your lap. Sure, there are moments when things line up and that happens, but more often than not, if you want happiness, one, it's a choice, and you're going to have to choose to go get it and or find it for yourself. Especially in today's climate. I mean, a lot of people are, looking out for themselves, which is totally acceptable and fine. So that's where that responsibility is really then on you as the individual to go seeking. So whether that's, meditating or finding other hobbies, like the analogy in my head is that, a lot of people will step over pennies to pick up dollars, right? But if you pick up 100 pennies, you still got $1. That to me is like the meditations, the walks, the hiking, these little things that people lose sight of because it's not glamorous. It's not like going to Coachella or going to a basketball game and, being at the Staples Center, Crypto Arena, or whatever they call it now. But it feels like everybody's looking for that glitz and glamour. But when you peel back the covers, the glitz and glamour is just some temporary sparkle stuff that washes away. The stuff underneath that really matters and really hits home are those routines, those wholesome well-being routines that maintain that. And for me personally, not being in recovery myself, the biggest eye-opener was looking at the tools of recovery, because they apply to anybody, no matter which part of life you are, whether you're in recovery, out of recovery, a guy down the street, Christian, Jewish, Muslim, it doesn't matter. They're just basic foundational principles that anybody can apply. And I'm willing to make a bet with anybody listening to this. If you go through, pick any channel of recovery, go through the process, really apply them, I guarantee you things will be better after all is said and done. Guaranteed. I'll make that bet every day.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take it even a step further. I've never, ever, ever seen someone fail who really gives this 100%.
Yeah.
I've never seen it happen. Anytime anybody fails, myself included, I can always look back and go, I kind of knew I was failing when that was happening.
Yeah.
But I chose to ignore it. I chose to say, you know what, this won't lead to the failure that might come. And what if I really like picking up pennies and I don't even know it?
Yeah.
What if the act of picking up the penny every day keeps me away from chasing the dime every day? And then through picking up the penny every day, I gather some discipline. People see me different and start treating me different. And then my whole life's different.
That's right.
And I'll guarantee you, when you have $5 in pennies, that $5 is going to be more valuable than if you found an Abraham Lincoln on the street corner. Like guaranteed,
100%.
The amount of effort and stuff that you put into it is what you reap what you sow. Everybody has heard these things time and time again. They've been beaten into our head, but yet it's still funny how over time we lose sight of the things that are the simplest that attribute to our happiness, whether it's, fellowship and community, whether it's exercising and being active and, getting natural endorphins and things. So no, I mean that I love that. And it's funny. Hilary's not privy to this, but Jason is, and I think Ethan might be. But like, I've been going through different aspects of recovery to really understand it, especially as we're trying to develop some new programming for the foundation to bring to schools and things. For example, we have a school that's looking for a very set list of check boxes, and to the average person, these might be some very stringent things. Looking at it through the lens of recovery, I'm like, this is just recovery. This is easy. We're in, and it's so funny that all these distractions take you away from the simplicity of it. That's really what it is. Just like in my head, just keep it simple, stick to what put the work in, and you'll have something productive that comes out of it.
Okay, for solution, how do you maintain? What secrets do you have for our listeners? What gets you through this process?
I keep the humility that allows me to be aware of what happens when I don't stay in the solution. Right. And it might not be relapse or anything. You know, this is the weird thing about drinking and using is that often so many people think once they're drinking and stop drinking and using, their problems kind of get solved. And it's so the opposite of that. What drinking and using does when we stop it is it gets our family to focus on our other problems. Right? It gets our sphere of influence to notice everything else that might be wrong with us. Right. And so often people come into treatment and they want to, you know, get their family back or, you know, fix old relationships. And really all we're doing is removing a maladaptive coping mechanism. Mm-hmm. And if your family for the last 15 years has been saying, Dylan, you got an alcohol problem, Dylan, you got a drug problem. Once you remove that, man, other problems start coming up. It's not that you don't have other problems. It's just there's one that people are focused on. And that one thing is leading them to not focus on the fact that you also suck at finances, that you also can't communicate, that you also don't pay attention to your health, that you drink too much soda, that you don't read or try to gain knowledge, that you don't seek meaning in your life anywhere, right? Yeah. And this is what I realized about me. Yeah, the obvious is, Dylan, you can't do heroin and have the life you want, right? You can't drink alcohol and have the life you want, but like having the life you want isn't just not doing those things.
That's right. You know, you're talking about that you have to do, you know, the keeping the things simple. And the thing is that when I got clean and sober, I could barely stand each moment. It was just like I was craving, I was insane. But something happens in sobriety and being clean. And I think that both Ethan and Dylan can attest to this, that just like you guys are talking about craving keeping the routine, that you find joy in the things that you never thought you could find joy in. It's unbelievable. You're like, I never knew I would like this. But it's about staying clean and sober long enough that we can find the joy in that, get past the cravings, get past the sleepless nights, detoxing and getting your mind worked out and all the crazy stuff that we have to go through. Get to the place where that miracle happens.
All right. So routine's a big part of my recovery. You know, when I came out here, I changed my bad habits and replaced them with healthy habits. Right. Yeah. And my healthy habits is health and wellness and running, hiking, working out, my diet. You know, it's not what to put in your body, but the benefits of what you put in your body. And that's a huge part of my routine, my daily routine that I do and that I coach people on. Tell me a bit about your routine and what's really helped you out.
So I started a routine probably in 2015, again, 3 years clean before I realized, hey, maybe you should kind of routinize your life a little bit. I read a book called The Morning Miracle by a guy named Hal Elrod. And it kind of blew me away. And so what I started doing, and I've been doing the last 6 or 7 years, is I wake up and I stretch, I meditate, I journal, right? I read 10 pages a day of some book, no matter what, and then I exercise. These are 5 things I do no matter what every day, right? And it goes to we're talking about distraction, and I like to ask people what the opposite of distraction is. And we tend to overthink it, but it's traction, right? And what I do in my life today is I limit everything that can get me away from myself. Right. I haven't been on social media since 2015.
Wow.
Wow. I haven't.
Bravo.
Yeah.
Thank you. I have no interest in looking at other people's life today. Because looking at I had this guy early on, you could call him a mentor of mine. And we were talking one day and we started talking about somebody else and he walked away. And and then he did this over and over again. And to the point where I was like, dude, like, why you keep walking away when we're talking about so-and-so? He said, Dylan, when I talk about other people, it makes me feel better about me without doing anything to actually be better.
Ooh, that's so good.
And I'm like, man, now I know that I gossip to feel better about myself.
Wow.
Right. And so I can't have these things that get me off track. You know, I met my wife at 90 Days Clean, and it was one of the biggest distractions ever. So we talk about relationships early in recovery. If you meet somebody early on and they look at you with the eyes of you're good enough, why change anymore? You know, but the problem is the beginning of these relationships aren't real. I mean, you could say that, right? We're bound by oxytocin and we feel these feelings that it's the honeymoon phase, right? And you know, 7 months into our relationship, we hate each other, right? And when in reality, we could have just worked on ourselves and not be codependent 7 years later. You know, and we're still together and we got married and we have a great life, but we're dealing with a lot of problems that we didn't have to deal with if we took suggestions of the people who came before us.
Yeah. Wow, that's powerful. I was listening to this lady speak the other day, and she said, my mentor told me that if my name isn't in the sentence, it's none of my business. I was like,
and that's where
dang.
Hilary writes her name in every sentence.
I'll take it a step further. Even if your name is in the sentence, it's none of your business.
Ooh, that's good.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Why would it be?
Yeah.
I mean, I have this weird thing in the culture of addiction and drug use is that if anybody talks about me, it's my issue. But that's because I have to protect an image, right? In the culture of drugs and alcohol, I don't have to protect an image today. The truth is like a lion, man. You just set that free. It's undefeated. It'll protect itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So I tell look, when I struggle with people or people talk about me, I'm like, dude, I'll see you in 2030. I'll see you. You'll see me. And my life will speak for itself.
Amen. Amen.
I don't have to do any talking anymore.
It's where I get to a place where I don't have to prove anything to anybody else or even myself to prove that I am worthy, that I just am worthy. And that even what you're saying is like when you said, say, in 2030, see me in 2030. And people have also talked to me about praying with my feet, that my actions speak so much louder than my words. And I've always loved that too. So you've given us some great things to think about today. And a last question that we ask our guests is, if you were to give our listeners one action for the day, what would it be?
I mean, if you're only giving me one, man, I would say feel it. Whatever it is, feel it. Like, stop having this idea that you shouldn't feel these things. Again, it goes back to this idea that you know what makes you happy, or you think you do. You know what makes you feel good, right? The point of these feelings are to feel them. And if you would allow yourself to feel these feelings, you might not go through with behaviors that you used to go through with, you know, and all kind of, I didn't feel the consequences in my active addiction that I should have felt. And the reason I didn't feel them is because I could take a substance that turned this thing off.
That's right.
So anytime a consequence came, if I had heroin or drugs or alcohol, that consequence means nothing to me. The problem is I need the feeling of the consequence so that my behavior is more likely to alter in the future. And this is why I got to look at the things I've done and feel them, right? And process them. Because once I'm able to do that, then I'm less likely to go on along with the behaviors again.
I absolutely love that. And just to give you a little peek into this last week, we found out that none of our embryos made it. And I was literally sobbing for 2 days straight. And it's been waves of grief. And I got to tell you, I was so proud of myself because I just faced the feelings. And I was sick with COVID, and I was feeling, and I was dealing with the grief. And my sweetheart was so supportive. And I just told my girls, I said, you know what? I don't like what I'm feeling, but I'm feeling it. And so much love surrounded me. And that is what I'm grateful for having a tribe. And exactly that, Dylan, to get to that place, I'm like, I'm a woman of integrity today. I didn't have to twist off in any kind of way. I just have been walking this out. And that's just what's so big, is that when we create this foundation of recovery for ourselves, which you've so beautifully articulated today, and Ethan has said, and even Alex, you might not be in recovery, but my gosh, you live a solution, and you're such a balance to the crazies that Jason and I can be, the spaz monkeys. And I just am so grateful for this foundation that we're given to live this life of not just sobriety, like you said, but life of freedom, and where we get to experience such gifts that we never knew possible. And Dylan, I just want to thank you for being on our show today. You've just knocked me out. I'm going to come back and listen to more of this. I typed one of your things into my phone, but man, you just hit me, bro. You just hit me.
Yeah, you definitely, you brought it today. Personal question. How old are you real quick?
31.
Wow.
The fact that you're younger than me and imparting this kind of wisdom, like if I didn't see your face, I'd be like, this guy's like 60 something with the stuff he's spitting, you know? Bravo, man. Like I love everything that you were saying and even challenging my bets and taking things a step further. Yeah. If people want to find out more about you, learn about your treatment facility, learn about you personally, obviously you're not on social media, but how can they get in touch with you?
So please check out trueselfrecovery.com. That's here in Rogers, Arkansas. We got a few facilities out here. I mentioned when I lost my job at the old facility I worked at, I started writing. All of my writings are on a website that I haven't published yet, but it's called realcovery.info. Instead of recovery, it's realcovery. Oh. And I named it realcovery because I hate the term recovery. I love the sentiment behind it, but the idea that you're going to go back and get something that you once had is crazy. Everything that I've gotten in recovery, I never had before. Ooh. Right? So I don't like to say I'm going back and getting anything. I'm creating a new world today, and I do have a podcast as well that you guys can find on realcovery.info. Mm-hmm. I haven't done anything since I started working here at True Self, but this today has kind of inspired me to get back into that. So yes. I appreciate you guys.
I love that.
Yeah, that's amazing. And by all means, we'll be in contact, but as your blogs start trickling out and stuff, we'd love to promote the content as well. Since, I mean, if it's even just a fraction of what you gave us today, I know it's going to help people.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, thank you. For real. Promote it or don't promote it. I don't really care either way. I'm grateful. Just invite me on anytime you guys want to talk. My goal in life is to demystify recovery.
Yeah.
Right?
I love it.
To demystify this, because this is not mystical. There's a simple way to get through all of this.
Amen.
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.